On all of these arrangements, except for one, interest and penalties still accrue, whether it's an installment agreement, the time with an offer and compromise, or CNC.
Hello everyone, I'm Michelle Voskel with the Neal Group. We made it through tax season. I'm here with John Neal, and yeah, we barely made it, but we did. John was joking that we should have bourbon sitting here because that's what we need. Anyway, right now we want to talk about things like how do you pay for your taxes in case you had a big tax bill, and what are the options for paying taxes, and things like ignoring back taxes, how can you pay those? So right now I'm going to ask John a few questions. So this morning, John, you and I were talking about ways that people can pay their taxes, and you said you had like 7 or 8 options that were available to taxpayers and how to pay their taxes back.
Right.
Do you want to explain?
Sure. When you talk to the IRS, the first thing that they always ask you is, can you full pay today? So that's one way. Just pay what you owe. A lot of people can't do that, which we can talk about later as far as why they can't do it. But you can enter into an installment agreement with the IRS, which gives you a period of time to pay the taxes. You can do what is probably the number one thing that all of our prospective clients come in and ask for, is what's called an offer and compromise, where on all the late night TV commercials you see, oh, I owed the IRS $3 million and I was able to settle for 17 cents.
Yeah, so an offer compromise, though, is related to back taxes, not current year taxes.
Well, it can also be for current taxes.
Okay, I want to clarify that so people know.
Yeah, but not everybody qualifies, and what we try and do here is kind of weed out the alternatives or figure out the alternatives. We aren't going to waste your money and your time and our time trying to do an offer and compromise when we know it's not going to work.
Makes sense.
Third option for paying taxes or not paying taxes is what's called currently non-collectible. And we just had a recent case with a person who sold her business, sold her real estate, and she wasn't making enough money, but she acknowledged that she owed the IRS the debt. The IRS said, well, you can't afford to pay us right now, so we're going to put you in what they call CNC status, and every 2 years we're going to take a look and see if you can pay. And as I say to clients, CNC, they'll basically leave you alone unless you hit the front page of the paper having won Powerball or Mega Millions or some other lottery, then they're going to want their money. But otherwise, they'll leave you alone. And we've been fairly successful with CNC people.
So with CNC, do you still run up interest charges?
Yes. On all of these arrangements, except for one, interest and penalties still accrue, whether it's an installment agreement, the time with an offer and compromise, or CNC.
Okay.
Then fourth option is what I call a nuclear option, and that's Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Chapter 7 bankruptcy can be used for all back taxes except for the 3 most recent years. So if we're in 2026, you can discharge all of your taxes except for 23, 24, and 25. Now, if the IRS has liens that they've filed on your home or your car or anything like that, those liens are still going to stay in effect, but the practical effect of the Chapter 7 is that you don't owe them any money.
Okay, so the pros and cons of a Chapter 7 bankruptcy from a business standpoint and a financial standpoint, what does that do to someone? I mean, granted, they get rid of their back taxes, which is great, but what else are they getting rid of?
They're getting rid of all of their debt. If they have a mortgage on their house, a Chapter 7 can discharge the mortgage on their house. And then, I'm not a lawyer, but I've worked with enough of them. You can reaffirm your debts. So you can reaffirm the mortgage on your house, you can reaffirm the loan on your car, and still keep those. It's probably less now, but there is still some sort of stigma about declaring bankruptcy. It is going to show up on your credit report. But as a practical matter, after a year or two, banks and credit card companies are willing to give you credit because they know you can't declare Chapter 7 bankruptcy for another 7 to 10 years, depending on what the time period is. So that's, and as I say, that's the nuclear option. I have recommended it to clients when it's appropriate.
Okay. What about the fifth option?
Fifth option, fifth and sixth kind of go together. One is what's called an innocent spouse provision, and the other is called an injured spouse provision. And this is a case where obviously you have to be married to have a spouse, but one spouse kind of controlled everything, controlled you kind of emotionally, mentally, possibly physically. And you can apply for status that says, it's not my fault that we owe this money. And you were working on it more than I was, but we just successfully concluded a case where it was an innocent spouse provision. We got a $300,000 bill down to, I think it was around $2,700.
Actually, it was more like $600,000, and we got it down to $2,700.
Okay. So it does work. It took 2 years. We had to go to appeals because our initial request was rejected. But she's happy, we're happy. The IRS will go after her spouse.
Yeah, there was a lot of work that we put into that, and a lot of the things that happen is a lot of court rulings and divorce proceedings have to happen and be concluded too. It takes a little while to do that.
Yeah, and you're also kind of, I don't know, exposing yourself because you have to get police reports, and we had to get hospital reports and things like that. So, but it is an option. Injured spouse is a little different in that you're saying that you more of a financial injury because of the situation that you're in. We've tried unsuccessfully, to be honest, on a couple cases. The spouse took massive distribution or withdrawal from his retirement plan, and they ended up owing $100,000 in taxes, and the female was getting her wages levied where she worked, and we tried to say injured spouse. Injured spouse, and the IRS said no, you benefited from the withdrawal, so you're on the hook for the taxes. Trying to think, what am I up to? 6,
You're up to
7.
Well, you did say installment agreement in there before, and that might have been 7.
Yeah, maybe I miscounted.
Well, that's okay.
So, but that's still a good range of options, and we look at them all when we meet with people. We aren't the late night on TV firms with the 800 numbers that say, well, you give us $15,000 and we'll file an offer in compromise even though you don't qualify.
So I would like to talk a little bit more about current year taxes too, because we just finished tax season and there were people that were surprised at their tax bill and they weren't aware of how much they were going to have to owe and they had not set money aside. So what we did with a lot of them was set up installment agreements. So if you want to
Right.
explain a little bit about installment agreements, the thresholds, what we like to try to do for them once we set up the installment agreement, and the length of time you can have an installment agreement.
Sure. With an installment agreement, you can take up to 72 months to pay off your bill. And some people need that much time. Some people will go, well, and I guess when I'm there's an option, so we're up to 8. There's an informal installment agreement where you just say, yeah, I'll pay the IRS off over 4 months or 5 months, and you save the application fee for an installment agreement because the IRS is going to charge you, and you save some of the aggravation that may occur because the IRS is probably going to take 3 or 4 months or more to send you a notice saying, hey, thanks for filing your tax return, but you didn't pay us. So in the meantime, you can do your own installment agreement. A formal installment agreement, if it's under $50,000, it's pretty much a done deal. By default, the IRS says if you can pay us $50,000 over 72 months, we'll take it. If it's over $50,000, then you have to give them some financial disclosures, in essence, your budget, and usually they will accept that.
The other day I heard you say to someone, though, with their assets, you said, well, if you have $1 million home and you're saying you can't pay $40,000 in taxes, that might be a little bit concerning. Or
yeah, that's more for the offer and compromise, though, than the installment agreements.
Yeah.
Now, what an installment agreement does do is we've had a fair number of clients that have had their passports revoked because they owe over $50,000. And one client in particular, I remember, it was a case of a husband and wife. They got divorced, and the tax bill was over $600,000. We asked for an installment agreement of $25 a month. And the IRS, how do I want to say it? The IRS gave her passport back based on her paying $25 a month.
Yeah. So there's different ways you can do it and not to get too carried away with anxiousness.
Yeah.
Because there's always a way to pay. The IRS just wants their money. So we've been talking about the IRS, but what about the state? The different states have different rules. State of Wisconsin, I know, is really strict.
Yeah, state of Wisconsin doesn't fool around. Number one, I think it's because they have fewer taxpayers to deal with than the IRS, so they can devote more resources to it. But they will do things like suspend your teaching license, or in the case of CPAs, say we aren't going to renew your CPA license unless you get into an agreement with us. And their installment agreement periods are typically shorter. They like to get paid within 12 months. They will accept something along the lines of the IRS for 72 months. But they are also going to file a tax warrant, which is a lien, even if you owe, say, $5,000. And they may put you on an internet list of delinquent taxpayers, which, in my opinion, only people with nothing to do really look them up and see if your name's on it. But, you know, they do that. They're also ones to be aggressive if you don't file a return. They will send you a notice saying, hey, you haven't filed your 2025 tax return. We say that you owe us $6,000. And if you don't respond, that number becomes very difficult to get changed.
Right. So when we meet with people, or when people get notices, the first thing we always tell them is just come in and see us, because we are able to help them. And just as you noted right now, with all this list, these are all the options, and we will find the best option for everyone. And if you are in that situation, do not hesitate. Don't hide. Don't be afraid. There's always a way to work out payments.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yes. 99.9% of the time, you are not going to go to jail because you haven't paid your taxes. As we tell clients, and you just said, they want your money. They don't want you sitting in jail. Now, if you ignore letters and things like that, and we've had clients that will bring in a stack of certified mail that was unopened because it was from the IRS or the state of Wisconsin. People are just afraid to deal with the IRS or the state. And we take that fear away, and you can see their shoulders drop when they come in, because we say, hey, we know that life happens, and the important thing is you're here now. Just met with a client last week who hasn't filed a tax return since 2018. And he wants to get back in the mainstream of society, if you will. And you could just tell in his voice when we were talking over the phone that he's glad that I'm around.
Right. So thank you for watching today. And if you need help with back taxes or current taxes and you owe the IRS money or the state, please come in and see us.